The station at Yellow Prairie at 3 o'clock in the afternoon presented a gala appearance. The station platform was thronged with people, soldiers, women, children, and civilian menfolk. At one end of the platform, a military band played old familiar nostalgic war tunes such as Tipperary, Auld Lang Syne, Roll Out the Barrel, and Wish Me Luck. The music blared into the cold, sharp air and mingled with the hum of voices and the intermittent ring of rough laughter. No one paid much attention to it. No one really heard it except perhaps one or two girls who, withdrawn from the crowd, heard the slow, even swing of Auld Lang Syne and cried gently, trying to suppress their tears, while their menfolk, enormous in greatcoats and full kit, stood awkwardly by attempting to console them. The crowd had gathered into tiny knots of 4 or 5 people, between which there was a constant weaving as friends went from one group to another, and of others searching for familiar faces. The crowd was constantly moving back and forth across the platform, or turning now and then to glance down the tracks in the direction of the expected train. Each tiny group had at its center a departing soldier upon whom mothers, sisters, sweethearts, or wives were bestowing those eternal sentiments of farewell, which are given in the last moments of departure to loved ones. Sentiments of abiding love and anxiety that are clothed in admonitions, instructions, and banal generalities. In the hearts of many lay the dread, cold fear that this was the final parting, that life might become a hollow shell in which the breath of sweet bliss forever lost would echo through the years. As though to hide their sentiments before the gaze of kinsmen and strangers alike, they indulged in banal remarks about wearing apparel, comfort, and health, and glanced down the tracks as though to halt the approaching train. By an intimate embrace and lingering handclasp, they could communicate the sentiments of the heart for which there were no words, no adequate expression in the tongue of man. But now the atmosphere of the scene upon the platform had changed. From afar came the long, dying whistle of the approaching train. The crowd heard it and were quiet a moment, and in that lull could be heard the sharp staccato roar of a nearby yard engine. Then a wave of excitement gripped the crowd, and the din of voices and shuffling of feet rose above the blare of the band. Final farewells were said by relatives and friends. People shook hands sadly with the departing soldiers and began to move back from the platform against the station front, leaving the soldiers with their next of kin, their wives, sweethearts, and mothers. And these, grasping at the last few moments of farewell, began to speak the concerns in their hearts. Take care of yourself, son. I'll miss you, darling. Will you think of me often? I'll be waiting for you. As soon as the cars had been coupled to the train, there had been a general rush to obtain the best seats at the windows. Many intended to find seats in the cars, shed their equipment on them, then return to the platform for a last hurried farewell with wives and sweethearts. The sergeant had anticipated this, and to forestall it had posted pickets at all the doors. Once having climbed aboard, no one was allowed off. Farewells were being shouted from the car windows and doors. Men waved their arms and shouted to friends and relatives, and these in turn called back last-minute endearments and words of courage. The band, playing Tipperary, swung into Auld Lang Syne, and some of the crowd joined in. The train whistled. Silence for a moment descended upon the crowd. Then, effortlessly, without the usual roar of gathering power, the train began to move. As the train pulled away, she saw the roof of the last car above the crowd, and for a moment saw the whole train down the tracks where it drew past the grain elevators. She stood for a long time on the platform with her eyes fixed upon the dark trail of smoke against the sky where she had last seen the train. A heavy snow had begun to fall, muffling the sounds about the station. Large light flakes fell on her hair about her shoulders, melting on her face with the softness of a caress. She turned slowly and walked around the corner of the station and up the main street of the town. People spoke to her in passing, but she did not hear them. At her door she stood for a long time with her eyes fixed upon a fresh footprint in the snow, gazing at it until the soft falling flakes had obliterated its sharp pressed outline. Then she turned and let herself in and climbed the stairs to their room. She stood in the open door and looked around the room at the dead embers in the fireplace, the soft bright quilt upon the bed, the pictures, the chair, the geraniums on the windowsill. Wearily she walked over to the chair and sat on the edge of it with her knees pressed together and her hands clenched in her lap. She sat there for a long time in the gathering darkness, listening to the silence of the house.